No, it's there. Without capitalism, there wouldn't have been a Marx. He is a Smith and his rational a level of in this be own ways of the for that. I also think for this system years. Last point, but this was a serious Marxist. He prolific was infused with his Marx have and cite his work around great Marx society. They have conferences and meetings. Want to be able to drop his name and when I sit there and a party with the kind of of what he had to say. That's what he killed him in prison. Notion, well, I don't know. These are all the same. The Stalin is the. Where does that? I mean, what do you think we're on the recognition fire society price? We need group and family technology. The use of people, most authority, the dawn on people is not the one that they ought to worry about. Picture that that's the way they do this. And all the anxiety of the child because you're hoping to see whether the child can recognize that that's not rational, close, social moment, Arianism that you are subject to your adult life, Democrat with a little d, Marxism, and what its consequences are. Dismissed.
Have you with us today. It's an absolute pleasure to talk with you on Thursday.
Well, I feel a kinship with Michael I had known before because I learned about his history. I learned about how he got here. I think it's very, very important that these stories are told. And the reason is because there are a lot of us emerged.
Gonna notice that some time has passed and our chairs have shifted. It was some magic on my part. But we heard Rick's thoughts on what features of Marx's theories are necessary to understand the evolution of Marxism in the West and what we need to understand about Marx to evaluate today's economic situation. But I wanted to pose the same question to you just because it would be nice to hear your own take on things.
Well, Richard talked about the great forgetting of all this, the great absence of it. I think the best way to look at this is what's happening in the BRICS countries right now. They're trying to create an alternative to what Western Europe and America has done to them. They're trying to really design a new society very much in the way that the classical economists were trying to free their society from feudalism, from landlords and finance and monopolists. Yeah, you can see what the BRICS are already talking about. They want to get rid of the fact that of colonialism. They want to get rid of the fact that foreign countries have come in and taken control of their land for the land rent and natural resources for the natural resource rent, the oil rent, the mineral rent, the deforestation, and they want to deal with the debt problem. That there are all of the fruits of their growth have to be paid to the Western creditors in the form of interest, and they have to subject themselves to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, saying, you know, we're going to withdraw credit from you. We're going to end up bankrupting your balance of payments and therefore your exchange rates if you don't follow the neoliberal laws that we want. If you try to tax foreign owners of your natural resources, if you want to fine the oil companies for when they're creating pollution, then that's against the international, investment laws, and you have to compensate them for any of the fines, so that you have to bear all of the costs of the damage that they do to your economy. These are the problems that they're faced with, and in a way, they're the same problems that Western Europe had. And the irony is that these problems are caused by the progressive forces of capitalism getting rid of rent and finance and monopoly. But as they colonized, they created these very same problems. The last thing that England and France and Germany and America wanted was for other countries to develop the way they did, for other countries to free themselves from the rentier income. Well, I haven't seen any discussion at all among the BRICS of Marxism or classical economics. What they're doing today is trying to reinvent the wheel, but they're trying to reinvent the wheel without realizing that it was already invented 200 years ago in the classical economics. And so when Richard talks about what they're going to help themselves reinvent it by understanding Marx. What he means is not is Marx is including all of the ideas of Adam Smith and John Stuart Mill and the other Ricardo and the classical economists, the whole analytic system that they have for what kind of income is productive and necessary and what kind of income is predatory, exploitative, and we don't need. There's no discussion at all in the BRICS so far of, for instance, taxing away land rent, nationalizing the land, and yet that was the first item of the Communist Manifesto that discussed. In a way, you could say that the Communist Manifesto could be taken as the lead-off point as what the BRICS are going to be doing when they're meeting later in October in Kazakhstan. And yet, I haven't seen any discussion, and I'm in contact with a lot with a lot of people who play a role in China, Russia, and other BRICS countries. And Richard and I are both on many different international discussion groups saying this, but we have no idea about the extent to which our ideas are picked up, because in a way we're being uh, dismissed as part of the same kind of communism that ended up in Stalinism, and they're not looking at China really as being Marxist in this, and the Chinese are not making any attempt to create a dealing with land rent, natural resource rent, or finance, because that hasn't been part of their version of socialism with Chinese characteristics. And in fact, in 1979, the U.S. Department of Education had me as a consultant, and they brought me to a meeting with the World Bank, and I was discussing my discussions with the Chinese representative of the World Bank, and he said, what you're saying is wonderful. We've got to bring you to Shanghai to discuss. There's a Futures Institute there. Sounds just like you'd like. Would you like to go there? And I said, yes. And, the good thing is that I'm a Marxist too. And his face blanched. He said, oh dear, I urge you not to go. If you go, you may not come out alive. He said the one thing they don't want is any Marxist, because for them, Marxism was what happened in Russia. It's bureaucratic collectivism. It's the state that doesn't let any new economic policies, Lenin called it, any private enterprise being innovative or sensing what the market needs, or new technologies of electricity, or any of the others. So he said, best if you don't go. And I realized that I was not welcomed at Peking University's School of Marxism, and didn't stay there after 2 years, because I realized that their idea of Marxism, as I mentioned, was the politics and general economic analysis, which they pasted as a label on it. And as Richard said, there are very few other Marxists. There are many people who've gone to Marxist schools, like where Richard taught at Amherst, Massachusetts, but not all of the graduates in Marxism understood Marxism. And he and I are pretty much by ourselves. I know there are some people who are very sympathetic to us, but I don't know anyone else who's still alive, and we're in our 80s, who have this background. And in order to understand Marxism, in volume 2 and 3, you really have to study all of classical economics because it was all part of an organic development. That was a development. It wasn't getting rid of anything. It wasn't Marx against the free marketers. It was Marx he shared their idea of a free market, and a free market to Adam Smith and the other classical economists was a market free from economic rent. You don't have a landlord class anymore because there will be land rent. Some locations are worth more than others, but that rent will be used as a tax base. We don't have to tax labor's wages. We don't have to tax the industrialist's profit. We'll tax away economic rent where it can't be avoided. And where there doesn't have to be rent, we'll make sure that natural monopolies like water and sewer or education or healthcare are not in private hands. So there are not going to be any private monopolists. Well, in a way, China has made the great socialist Marxist advantage in keeping money as a public utility. That really is the key. Without we were discussing before how Marx expected banks to become the economic planners of industrial capitalism because they were looking for efficiency. But what is destroying industrialism in the United States and Europe for the last 30 years, 40 years, has been the financial system, the banks, because the banks are not trying to support industry. You can make much more money by deindustrializing the country than you can by industrializing it. You can make much more money borrowing money from a bank, buying a corporation, smashing it up, selling off parts. If you're a hospital, you immediately sell off the land to a real estate company, and then you lease it back, and you use the money you get for this land you've sold to pay a special dividend to the financial managers who take it over. And when Richard talked about the industrialists today not playing a productive role, the heads of the companies are not really the CEO, it's the chief financial officer. So the industrial capitalism itself has been taken over by the financial system that lives in the short term, that was exploitative, and has ended up deindustrializing the United States and Europe.
We live in the wrong kind of world to be described by string theory. No physicist has ever won a big prize for string theory. I can tell you with absolute certainty that it is not the real world that we live in. So we need to start over.
In a groundbreaking revelation, Leonard Susskind, one of the founding fathers of string theory and professor of theoretical physics at Stanford University, makes a stunning admission. String theory has failed, and many physicists don't know what to do.
They're scared. They might not get a job.
The theory that once promised to unify physics has instead generated 10 to the 500 different possible solutions, or vacuum states. Some theorists maintain that each mathematical solution corresponds to a physical reality, a legion of multiverses. However, the extensive efforts to tame this so-called landscape through, for instance, KKLT vacuum stabilization mechanisms, suggest an implicit acknowledgement that the multitude of universes is senseless. I'm Kurt Jaimungal, and on this channel, I explore unification in physics and philosophy using my background in mathematical physics from the University of Toronto. Today, it's a special treat since we have the legendary Leonard Susskind in rare, candid form, revealing his unconfined thoughts for the first time.
We should certainly be on the lookout for ideas which are not the consensus. We should be watching for them and not immediately dismiss them.
We also talk about what it means that the universe is a hologram, why quantum entanglement is equivalent to wormholes, why supersymmetry is absent in our universe, why we lack a quantum description of de Sitter space, and why young physicists are afraid, even discouraged, to tackle these fundamental problems.